everybody. Welcome to KISS.
Keep it simple, sister.
Hey, Diana.
Hi, Samantha.
We're going to talk about some fun, cool concepts today. But first, I want to introduce everybody to what it is we do here. This is all about feeling great by feeling better, which means we break it down into incremental steps to getting there and feeling better. And we do this by Diana and I sharing the tips, tricks, techniques, products that we've used that have gotten us from A to Z over the years, whether we consciously realized we were doing it or stuff that we picked up along the way, or things that we actively had to incorporate, integrate into our lives. So we love sharing all these concepts because we talk about them constantly, whether you guys are listening or not, whether we're being recorded or not, because we find it really fucking cool. So we want you to join us in this conversation.
Yep.
That was a lot.
She said exactly what I would have said.
Yes. So Diana never knows, and I never know how all of that's going to come out, but eventually it just bleh, does. It's funny when I get you laughing over it.
Yeah. Well, I'm just here like, what's she gonna say next? Okay. That's fucking interesting. Okay.
He said,
That's our new tagline, by the
yeah.
way. That's fucking interesting.
Ah, I like that. A whole brand new, like we've shortened our sessions to get to the meat of things. And we've got this new tagline and there's going to be free life coaching being offered, um, once a week starting in early November. So like, it's like all
It's
brand
all
new.
new and different. It's
Yeah.
all
We need to
new.
get through summer. Just,
Yeah, we've been struggling a little bit, both of us, for different reasons, the same reasons, all the reasons, but we're back.
but the same reasons everybody else, like it's been a tough summer for.
Kind of rough. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's been a thing. It's been a thing. Um, so today's topic, which Diana was, I mean, yeah, I know you've heard us talk about this, but you never really felt like it necessarily applied to you until recently, and now you're going,
Right.
what up? So we're going to be talking about inner child work. What the hell is it?
Yes, and Samantha has mentioned it many, many times. I'm like, yeah, I guess I got an inner child somewhere. I don't know. She didn't tell me we needed to work on it, so I'm just waiting to see. But
Well, and I've heard it in the realm of the work that I do for the longest time. And I've always thought it was such a touchy-feely kind of ew. Like I've got weird perceptions on things. It's really fascinating. Um, like, when I talk about Jesus, like because of the whole born again thing and everything, I had such an aversion to Jesus. We were not good. I was not good with him. Like it was just a weird concept.
yeah.
And so this falls under that kind of category where I'm like, this just sounds like really frou-frou-y weird stuff. And I could
Well,
not
and
get
for me though, it does have a connection. Like everything goes back to your childhood,
it. I
all your issues,
Mhm.
and even we'll joke about, well, you'll have to work this out in therapy when you get older. Like I used to say that to my kids sometimes.
Wow. Okay, so I'm gonna the if you Google it, what comes up is inner child work is a type of therapy that helps people heal emotional wounds and trauma from childhood. It's based on the idea that how we were cared for as children can impact how we care for ourselves as adults. Um, and the thing is, like at some point, you have to grow up and accept responsibility. You can't keep I say you can't. You can. But at some point you have boy, listen to all of these insistence. It is really good to release from all of these childhood triggers because you're making yourself and everyone else around you miserable by these wounds. And there's several, like I keep wanting to jump into topics, but I want to take us through a process here of how I
Okay.
explain it to my clients. And I know all this stuff will pop back in when I do. Um, okay, so when I bring up inner child work, I don't think of it as therapy. I'm not an inner child work
Therapy.
therapist. Yeah, I've not
Yeah.
been formally trained or anything like that. It is a tool in my toolbox that I bring out to effectively move someone through whatever. Okay. So the way that I describe, I'm gonna, when I'm sharing this with clients, um, usually I've set the basis that we are creator beings. We come into this world. Yeah, you're kind of going, wait, what? Like I'm starting
Wait a
further
minute. She's
back.
going woo. Get ready.
Um, so it's like
I like it. It's really fucking interesting. Go ahead.
is we file a plan that says, you know, or you could say a roadmap that says, I'm going to experience certain things throughout my lifetime because these contrasty experiences will help me grow, will help shift who I am. I will learn more insights. So if you say, I want to be involved in a car wreck that, you know, maims me in some way, shape, or form, some other soul might say, well, I want to be the one who maims you. So I learn about the consequences of my drinking, whatever. Like, so there's all these complex interwoven actions that we have with everybody we come in contact with in this experience, right? All right. So here you are, this aspect of your higher self coming into this experience, this 3D experience, coming into Earth. And you've chosen your parents, they're part of this whole plan. So, what's going to make you you? One thing, the thing that starts off with, otherwise you'd be super vanilla, is wherever the astrological lining of the planets are based on where you're born will give you certain tendencies. Like Aries, we were born as Aries in a certain year, which at a certain location, which means that you and I are both very fiery signs. We're very like, we can be upbeat and positive, and we could also be very moody. Um, but we have different influences because you were born somewhere different, and as opposed to where I was born. And you were born 2 days later. So the placements of the planets kind of, it's like different ingredients to
Mm-hmm.
bake into you.
For our recipe.
Yes. So that when you're born, um, you have like, some people say, I don't know where he got it from, but he's like really good at math. He's really analytical. I'm not like that. And that's part of that baked in whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And those are kind of, you know, we put a little extra spin on it because some of these have negative traits that, again, they're giving you an opportunity. Like mine was moodiness. You would never know it, but my poor mother would talk about how I was so freaking moody. I mean, I was bad moody. And I grew out of it. Like I learned, I caught myself doing it and grew out of it. Okay. So that's your baked inness. So you've got your flight plan or your roadmap, whatever, and then you got the baked in element. So then we come to the active part of what we're working with when we do inner child work, which is from, okay, the day that you're born, you know, generally, you know, nothing but unconditional love. Your needs are cared for. Now, not everyone experiences it. And so some inner child work goes back to the womb,
Okay.
which is kind of wild. Like if you're not wanted, if your mother was stressed during that time for whatever reason. But generally speaking, you come in and all your needs are met. Okay. The moment that you begin to walk, the moment that you begin to have autonomy, everything shifts. All of a sudden, it becomes unconditional love. It can't be conditional. It has to be, I mean, unconditional love, it has to become conditional because it's our perception. Your mother may love you still regardless, but she's got to stop you from running out in traffic or touching something hot. And the moment she does that, she's withholding. She's, you know, yelling, she's getting your attention, she's spanking you, whatever it is, it shifts to conditional love. And, you know, oftentimes we talk about the terrible twos. There's lots of aspects. That's one of them. So now you come into conditional love. And people from this point, you know, you're bringing your child into this world. You're going to screw them up one way or another. Which is, what is that saying that you said about the therapist?
Oh, you can work this out when you grow up. You'll work this out with your therapist.
Yeah. And that's such a wonderful line to say
Yes.
because, you know, you can only do so much and then you got to back off and just go, I've done what I can.
Well, and it's all perception too. Like,
All perception.
both of my daughters were basically raised by the same two parents with the same set of skills, toolbox or whatever,
Hmm.
but both of them took to those tools differently, perceived them differently.
Hmm.
One was okay with everything that we were doing and complied, and the other one was like, "What in the world? No."
Not doing it, not having it.
Uh-uh.
That's true. Um, so what ends up happening is, like, according to the teachings of Bashar, um, there every situation's neutral. Like it is just it's inherently neutral. And the reason why you know it's neutral is because one person can look at the situation and be like, no big deal. Another person could look like at the situation and be like, oh my God, this is the worst thing in the world. So everyone perceives the situation differently.
And that would be me and my husband.
Yeah, totally
Like, I
different.
have never seen anything that's so opposite in perception. Go
That
ahead.
is funny. Well, so then when you're a child, let's take the best circumstance. Okay. Even in the best circumstances, this is gonna happen. So you're a child and like perhaps your oldest child, bringing home fantastic grades, doing all the things, doing wonderfully. And they're chugging along, great childhood, having great experiences. And all of a sudden they come home one day, they don't know why, something occurred, but they have a C. They don't know what happened. They show their parents, and one of the parents says, wow, I expected an A. I'm just kind of shocked, and all of a sudden a seed of doubt is formed. Like, I didn't perform. They're not happy with me. How did this happen? What is happening in my world? Like, walls start crumbling and all
Mhm.
this stuff. And it can happen to a second grader. It can happen to someone who's, generally when you're towards high school, you got your act together a little bit more, but you're still being affected. It's usually on different levels. But um, so
Or you've developed a perception of I don't care,
yes. Yeah. And so it
or
no
I don't
longer
care as much as I used to, or that as much as they want me to.
exactly. That's a good point. So, but it really matters when you're in the younger stages. So, what happens is the child starts looking around them, and they start looking for evidence to prove it right or wrong. This theory they now have that there's something flawed here, something flawed within them. And so the universe, law of attraction, whatever, or you could say law of assumption, even, that you're pulling these experiences towards you to either prove the theory that you're missing something wrong or right. And
Mhm.
so when you're proving the theory right, then you're bringing all these negative things in. And I talk about it like almost being this, like, think of an oyster where you have this grain of sand and then you keep shellacking it over and over
Mhm.
and over again. And I see it like I used to go, why do I see it as a pearl? Because pearls are good things. And this is
Yeah,
like, these become like hairy tumors when people don't address them, and we know about hairy tumors. But
personally.
yeah, but but it's a pearl because it's an opportunity to examine and grow. It's a reflection point. Everything is beneficial. This is a friendly universe, right? So it is a pearl. Maybe it's just grown some hair around the edges. Um, but anyway, so then you form this feeling of I'm not good enough, however it works out. And this is in the lightest circumstances, right? So
Yeah.
you go through high school, you go through college, if you go to college or your younger years into adulthood, and it starts to form a pattern because you've taken this microscopic thing, looked out to the external world to prove the wrongness of you, and then you keep repeating certain patterns because that's what becomes familiar, and it reasserts the fact that there's something wrong about you.
Mhm.
And then down the road, you come to someone like me going, where the hell did I go wrong? Why have I had 3 divorces? Why can't I ever get it right?
Mhm.
And that's when we start, looking at your patterns and the fact that you felt like you're not good enough. And then we get into, I think we need to look at inner child work.
Like, where did that come from? When
Yep.
did that start?
hmm And so typically I'll say, what is your earliest memory? And it's so hard because the moment I bring up childhood, there's the tendency to defend the parents. Well, my relationship with my mom's pretty good now. Okay, I'm not talking about now. I'm talking about then.
Then,
Nothing,
yeah.
nothing right now as you perceive it now is going to assist us. I need to go back to your childhood. So how was it when you were a child? Well, my mom was a little hypercritical. Okay, when's the first time you felt that hypercriticalness? Well, when I brought home this paper. And how did that make you feel? Made me feel really shitty, like I couldn't get my act together. Okay, that's a very oversimplified, but it's
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
that simple. So we're following me so far, right? I've made sense of this. Okay.
So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Okay, good. All right. So in this whole process, this is where the actual inner child work begins. And so
So
the
that's
way,
what led you to, well, how it works,
yeah,
what's working. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like it's and the thing is, like, I explain this every time to clients, and I always let them know this is something that I can guide them through, someone else can guide them through, or you can do it yourself. Once you learn the process, you can
Mm,
actually do it yourself.
interesting.
But here's the thing: if I say to you, you will learn a valuable lesson if you take your hand and put it on a flame. Um, you're going to tend not to do that because it's painful. Whereas if I do it for you, then you feel a bit more guided, like I'm being careful that you won't get
Yeah.
hurt.
Yeah.
So that's basically what I'm doing, is to make sure that I'm being as careful as possible as we kind of pull back these layers
Uh-huh.
and look into the childhood. um so it's kind of a delicate process.
I'm sure
um,
it's really emotional too for the people that you're working with.
Very emotional. So before I get into the actual how we do it, um, I just want to make people aware that there's several ways we can describe this. Like, I have done um, shamanic work, which if I don't say I practice shamanic work because it takes a lot to become a shaman, and
Mhm.
they do not like people who um, to, like, say, oh, I do this work, and they have not actually been properly trained, because they
Okay.
see it as very sacred and holy and so forth. And but essentially, shamanic work in the sense that it's like soul retrieval. You're retrieving aspects of your soul that have been put in a box, pushed away. um and and in that sense, talking about like soul retrieval, like, I've done uh, meditations, regression meditations, where, like, I've gone through and looked at someone, and it's like you see parts, bits and pieces intuitively. You see these bits and pieces, and you're able to bring them to light. And the person goes, I know what that means. It's like really cool. So it's a whole different framework of getting to the root of the problem. I mean, essentially going to the same place, but a
Hmm.
different way. And most commonly, people have heard about shadow work. That's become the end thing to do, because it's getting to those shadows, those parts of you that you find unacceptable, that you're so scared that if you bring it to the light, that it's not just that nobody will love you, it's that you won't be able to love yourself. And
Mm,
so that's, shadow work is incorporating all aspects of yourself, bringing it to the light, and becoming whole, that whole
okay.
aspect of
Yeah.
you. So this is part of it with inner child work. All right. So we're ready for me to describe how we do this now.
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay.
So fucking interesting. Let's go.
Yes. Well, and so at this point, let's share with how we got you to this point. Like,
Okay.
what was going on, if you're comfortable sharing, so that people can see it, sense it, and be able to go, yeah, I've been going through that too. I can see why she needed to do this.
Well, I don't even remember. Cue me, because so
Well,
we were talking to another friend. I've had a lot of stuff going on, a lot of
Diana's jumped into the deep
self-examination.
end. Yes.
Yeah.
With Reiki and someone else doing some other work. I thought there was Reiki and something else.
I don't know. It's been a lot of different things.
Yeah. Well, Diana has a habit of saying everything's fine. Everything's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
Or it's gonna be fine.
Yeah, it's gonna be fine. That's a little bit better. But when you're sitting there saying it's fine and it's not, you're
Yeah,
shoving something down to be dealt with later.
which I have done for a very long time about a lot of different things. So
Yes.
that's how we
Well,
kind of got to, instead of me just saying, let's not worry about it, let's not worry about it, let's not worry about it, I have to examine some of it and figure it out and
mhm.
work through it. And I had no idea how to do that.
Yeah. And I think through Reiki, some of that was bubbling to the surface.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, now there's emotions, Diana. Like,
Mhm.
these are triggers when, as an adult, when you're sitting here like getting emotional about things, or when you find that like you have knee-jerk reactions to things, those are triggers. Triggers are unresolved wounds or trauma from some aspect of your life. And it can be from like divorce, or
Right.
losing someone major in your life, whatever, losing a major job or whatever.
Let
But
me give you an
all,
example of a trigger for me.
uh-huh.
So I cannot stand to have dishes in the sink. I mean, that's just ridiculous, right? Who cares if there's a dish in the sink? Whatever. Well, going back to my childhood, my mom was schizophrenic and my dad thought that the wife did all of the everything. And so our sink would pile up with dishes that had food on it that would like grow things or whatever.
Yeah.
And so somehow that always takes me back to that situation and that time period that was so uncomfortable and so just bleh.
Mhm. Well, and it's one thing to have to go, I don't want to experience that, so I'm going to keep things clean, but
Mhm.
that's unresolved.
Right, exactly.
No, there's something that's that burr under the
Well, and there's so much more to the sink full of dishes than that really isn't the issue.
yeah, and that's where a lot of
It's
compulsions come from.
mhm,
Those, and sometimes this can be so simple and you end up having the aha moment, like
right.
it doesn't have to be super painful, but you know, I kind of my sister gave me this phrase a long time ago. It always ends in tears. When you get two kids to play together, it's almost always gets blown up, and but these sessions, it almost
Almost
always
always end
ends
in
in
tears.
tears.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the dynamic of the session.
Okay.
Um, so what I'm doing is I get my clients to relax and and we talk about the topic at hand. I have them close their eyes, or no, before they close their eyes, we talk about the topic at hand. And then I say, what's the earliest memory you have of that? And sometimes they remember, sometimes they don't. If they don't remember, then, I go ahead and have them close their eyes, but it all just depends. I feel it out. But I'll say to them, okay, so when's the earliest memory? And sometimes they can go back to the root of it. Sometimes they can go back to the last time they remembered it, like 14, 8 years
Mhm.
old, whatever. Um, because think about it, a lot of us, didn't you say this? Like, cannot remember periods of time. Oh, another client had told me that, where it's
Oh,
like,
no, and I say that all the time, like, that my brain protects me from when
yeah,
there's something traumatic, I don't remember a whole time period.
yeah. So my client may not remember that this started at 8. But they might be able to remember the feeling at 14, or they may not be able to put a date on it. They just know that it comes from a certain time period or whatever.
Yeah.
So then I have them relax and tell them, I guide them through this meditation process. So it's a
Mm,
visualized meditation. And I take them into a home and I have them describe, usually like a living room, kind of
mhm,
or you're in front of a hallway, and let's walk down the hallway. So, they begin describing it, and then we walk down the hallway and I say, you come to a door and you're going to open this door. And on the other side, you're going to find that aspect of you that was at that age when this occurred. And so they'll open the door and I have them describing what they're doing so I can kind of follow along with them. But a lot
Uh-huh.
of times I can see in my mind's eye because I'm intuitive, I'm
Hmm.
very highly trained, so I can see what's occurring as it's occurring. So then they go inside and I'll say, where is the younger you? And they will describe it as in the corner or on a chair or on the bed. And I'm like, okay, what I'd like you to do is make a nice spot in the middle of the room. And I want you to ask your younger self, go sit over there and ask your younger self to come to you. And so they'll do that. And then we will go through a process of talking about it. So this is the adult you talking to the younger you about the situation that occurred. And that, that younger you um, did just fine. Like what we're doing is we're rewriting it. We're reworking the wiring of that situation,
Hmm.
and we're validating the experience the child had. Like, okay, so you had a C. C's happen. Everyone has moments where they, you know, don't perform as they expect to perform. And your parents couldn't, excuse me, they couldn't possibly know that you would interpret it as not good enough, because of course you're good enough. Look at all you've done in your life. Look at who you are sitting right in front of you now. You're a responsible adult who has this huge business and, thriving children of your own. And so you're really okay. Do you feel like you're okay? And they'll sit there and they'll, interpret with the child, how the child's feeling. And I'm like, um, if your child feels like they're comfortable, then reach out and touch them, hold them, bring them to you, and just tell them everything's okay. It's all right. There's love all around, that you're all good. You're a grown up now and all this. And so they'll have this quiet conversation with the child. And it's so cute because I have some people that say, I don't want to let go yet, like they really incorporate. And I'll just say, eventually I'll say, okay, it's time for us to leave. Just let that child know, that younger you know, that it's all good. You've got this. They don't have to do this anymore. Everything's good. And they'll communicate that. And, sometimes I'll say, if you need to come back, just let them know you'll come back if they need you. But if they don't, it's all good. Everything's fine. And we'll step out, and then my client comes back and they'll share what they experienced. And it's usually there's tears, there's, like it's it's just such a fascinating process to go through. But what's happening there is that you're connecting with that younger you, you're validating the experience that nobody validated at that time.
Right.
It's like you're giving evidence that you're going to be okay, because here you're the adult and you're okay.
Yeah. You
And
turned out okay.
yeah, and so, there's all that validation. So you're incorporating this aspect of yourself that you'd shut off, rewriting history and bringing it into the fold. So, like, I've done that for so many things in my past.
Well,
Through
and that was the question I was going to ask. It's not a one-hit wonder.
Oh
Like,
no,
yeah. So inner child work is not okay. Here we are. We're going to do this. This is going to fix you. We never have to revisit again.
it's onions, layers of an onion.
Yeah.
You keep, because people will say, "Oh, I'm fixed now." Like, I've done this for my past and I've done it pretty solidly, but I've found little things here and there. Some things
Hmm.
from my adulthood I've needed to address, my younger adulthood. A lot of stuff from my childhood, I was fortunate that I had a very different kind of therapist. um, and this is back when I was in my mid 20s. And he took me back to my early childhood and did all of this stuff. And I didn't know what it was at the time. But through that and through just talking about things, you share your experiences,
Hmm.
it's lost its power over me, the
Yeah.
trigger. And so when I talk about it and share these experiences I've had as a child, they're stories. They're stories that explain who I've become, but they
Right.
don't have that effect on me anymore. So
And
it's
so
an
you're
amazing
changing the
process.
perception, like your perception of as a child is
Hmm.
a totally different thing as your perception as an adult.
Hmm.
And so you're connecting those two things.
exactly.
Yeah,
And
interesting.
I know we're coming up on 30 minutes. We're going to go a little bit longer with this one because I want to just get people to visualize. We may mainly speak with women, right?
Right.
That's the people who come to listen to us. So I'm going to say, how many women out there have met wounded men who, when they're hurt, when they're upset, when they're triggered, they go back to their teenage years. They respond as not as a child, usually it's as a teenager when they're
Mhm,
forming that idea of manhood.
mhm.
And so many of them get caught in that period of time. And so, like, I'm just giving you that awareness. Think about, like, if men would go back and do this work, it would be tremendous. But this is showing like the wounded child. We see the wounded child all the time, and we see it with women too. It's just that since I'm speaking to women, it's easier just to go, look at your man, look at the men you made. You know, it's just it's all too common, and it's just
Yeah,
part of the process. But yes, we're rewriting it. We're neutralizing the effect it has on your life, but we're doing it not as you don't need to remember this. It's you need to validate and incorporate it into how loving is that to
yeah,
validate it and bring it into your life.
yeah.
So yeah. I thought you were about to say something. Sorry. Because I've been
I
going,
thought I was too, but I wasn't.
oh, blip. I like that.
Yeah.
Women of a certain age. Never know with us. Um, but anyway, so this is the kind of stuff that we're going to play with when we do like the group. Um, I've talked about the whole free group process or meetings, Zoom
Describe that again, because we talked about it in the other podcast, but if people haven't, um, if they're not coming directly from that one to this one, why did you decide to do the free group and
so
what's it all about?
coming in November, we're going to start offering to, it'll go out via anyone who's on my mail list or anybody who's in the KISS Facebook group. Got to be a member of the KISS Facebook group or have been a past client of mine to join these free weekly sessions. So it's group membership. There's no fee. It's going to be, if you want to do, I've heard the expression love offering,